Hi, I'm Lillian. Welcome back to my channel Income Pages. Today I'm going to be showing you all of the books I have got so far this year. And if you can hear any loud bird song in the background, that's because all of my windows to my flat are open because it's 9 o'clock in the morning and it's already boiling. So the first book is The Gathering Dark. This is an anthology of short stories which are edited by Tori Bovalino. It claims on the front cover that this is an anthology of folk horror, and I certainly bought it thinking it was going to be an anthology of folk horror. I don't think it actually is. In my opinion, most of the stories in here are more like contemporary paranormal stories, and they don't cross that line into actual horror. And also they didn't feel very folky. They felt too modern to be folky, and I guess you can have modern folk stories, but I don't think any of these were. So for book number one that I ended up buying in 2023, it was not what I expected. The next book I bought, I can't find. I have no idea where this book ended up, but it was a copy of the Iliad by Homer, and I found it in a train waiting room at the Crowborough train station. Me and my dad had got on the train there, we were going hiking. I found it like in the train station, and I had this bookshelf and it was like £1 per book, and I saw it and I was like, I know I'm about to hike for 8 to 10 miles and I'd have to carry it with me the entire way, but actually I would quite like this book. And so I bought it, I took a picture of it to put on Instagram, and then carried it in my backpack for 8 to 10 miles, brought it all the way back into London, and then immediately lost it. I have no idea where it is, but I've really wanted a copy of the Iliad for ages. I've got 2 copies of the Odyssey on my mythology and folklore bookshelf. And I've actually also got 2 copies of the Aeneid. And I know like the Iliad and the Odyssey go together, but I think of the Aeneid as like the unofficial 3rd member of that kind of group of epics. And so I thought I was catching up and I'd have 1 copy of the Iliad to match the 2 of the other 2. And I don't even have that. I have no idea where it's gone. So I'm not even sure if I can include it in this haul, but I own it somewhere. So I am including it. The next 3 books I have to talk about, I bought all at once in the Waterstones in Newport on the Isle of Wight when I was there on holiday with my family over Easter. The first one is Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. This is the 2nd book in the, what's it called? The Gentleman Bastard series. I read the first book, The Lies of Locke Lamora, in 2020 and really liked it, and then picked this one up. I am actually kind of currently reading this. There we are. I'm a big chunk of the way through. I'm almost halfway. I'm on page 244 and I'm taking a bit of a break. This is, would I call it high fantasy? I guess I would. It's like fantasy heist because our main character is like a thief and a con man, and he's also doing some thieving and conning in this book. And it's very clever and it's very fun, but it's also kind of complex, and it's a fun time, but it's not an effortless read. And you do need to engage your brain to follow it and to understand what is happening. And it didn't help that I read the first book 3 years ago and had mostly forgotten what happened and had mostly forgotten all the world building and what was going on, and so maybe I should have reread the first book before I tried to pick this one up, but I've got it and I'm hoping to finish it someday soon. The 2nd book I got that day is Medusa by Jessie Burton. This one is very, very short, thankfully, and as you can probably guess from the cover, it is a retelling of the story of Medusa from ancient Greek mythology. This I would not recommend if you've never heard of Medusa before. I mean, I think you need to know the story and how it traditionally goes in order to appreciate what this does with the story, and it kind of does change things around a bit and in a fresh way that I actually kind of enjoyed. This book also has a French flap, which is very cool. I think it could have done more with that. I love it when a French flap has a map on the inside. And this is kind of fun. It's like a wavy, or maybe they're meant to be her snake hair. That makes sense. But yeah, that was cool. And finally, from the Isle of Wight, I got Infamous by Lex Croucher, which I've also read. This is another one of their books, which is a kind of Regency romance kind of thing. I would say their first book I read, Reputation, I would class as more to do with friendship than romance. And so in my head, that is a historical fiction book. This is strongly a romance book. It is about 2 best friends called Eddie and Rose, and it was very sweet. and very romantic, and I really had a good time. And now this was the second book of theirs I've read, it kind of solidified that I really enjoy their writing style and I like what they're doing with Regency era stories. The next two books are also by that exact same author because I was kind of really feeling it and wanted to get all of their books at once. So then I got Gwen and Art Are Not in Love. This is not a Regency romance. This is set in medieval times and it is about Gwen and Art, who I think are engaged in like an arranged relationship. But Gwen is in love with the princess and Art is in love with a stable boy or something like that. They're in love or they want to be with other people. And so maybe it's like a, what's it called, a marriage of convenience, except normally with that trope, they end up falling for each other anyway, but in this time, they definitely do not. So because I've enjoyed all of this author's other works, I'm very excited for this, even if it's not a Regency setting, even if it's more medieval. But I mean, I'm into that as well, so like, I don't know why I'm worried. I think I'm gonna have a good time with this one as well. And this next book was a pre-order. It was my first pre-order ever. I mean, I did only order it like a week before it came out, but it still counts. And then it ended up coming 2 days early, and that is Trouble by Lex Croucher. And spoiler alert for my next wrap-up video, but this is probably my favorite book I've read this year. This is about a woman called Emily whose sister is a governess and her sister gets sick, so Emily pretends to be her to take up a governess position at a house and meets a certain someone, and they're both so grumpy, and Emily is like the grumpy, standoffish, angry heroine of my dreams, and I could rant and rave for ages about how much I love her and therefore how much I love this book. And it was just a great time and I knew I was going to like it, but it really just came out of nowhere and caught me off guard with how much I loved it. And finally, I have two books which I bought in preparation for my summer holiday, only one of which I actually read while on my summer holiday, and that was Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is a kind of gothic fantasy book about a girl who has like a long lost uncle and she goes to live with him, and when she gets there he's actually dead and the house is really creepy and no one's really telling her what's going on, and maybe there's a shadow world that's kind of like ours but different. Think like Coraline vibes. And I had high hopes for this. I really do love a gothic, maybe haunted mansion. I also love an actually haunted mansion. This one didn't quite hit the spot, but it was okay overall. And I also got Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is the author of The Martian. I think he's maybe had another 1 or 2 books in between that and this one. I haven't read them. I've only read The Martian. And people said that his other stuff like wasn't as good and it was kind of a dud, but they said they really liked this one. And I was like, sweet, I really enjoyed The Martian. If you tell me that this is gonna be as good, but like different obviously and fun and interesting, then yeah, I'll totally buy it and read it. And I have bought it, but I have not read it. And I also kind of got spoiled by someone else's book haul on YouTube where they said something which isn't on the back and isn't in any of the synopses, and which everyone else in their reviews for this book prevented talking about. So thanks to that person, I can't remember who it was, but thanks to that person for spoiling that for me. However, I do like that thing in the context of the story and I think it'll be fun. So I'm excited to eventually get to this. So here are all the books I have bought so far this year. Obviously except for that copy of the Iliad, because God knows where that's gone. It's vanished into the ether. It's probably in the negative space under the sofa at my parents' house or something like that. But this is all of them. I have read, how many have I read? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. I've read 5 and a half of these. Get me! How exciting. I'm getting a lot better at reading my physical TBR as it comes in rather than letting it languish on my shelves for years and years and years. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have also bought a book recently that you're very excited to read or that you've already read and you really, really loved. But I will see you in my next video.